Hey friends, it's Hope and today I am here to do my April wrap up. In the month of April, I did read 10 books, so it was a pretty solid reading month for me. I didn't absolutely adore all the books that I read, but I will get to that later. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. At the beginning of the month, I started off with reading The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn, and in typical Gillian Flynn fashion, she left me wondering what the heck did I just read. She is a mastermind of creating these twisted stories that I just am in complete awe that anyone can even come up with this stuff. And while this book was super short, it still had so much jammed packed within each of the pages. I was never bored while reading this. The subject matter was a little bit crazy. I was wondering how in the world it was all going to tie in together with the novel. But with that said, Gillian Flynn writes some really memorable stories and really memorable characters, and this one was no exception. I ended up rating it a 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read is totally different from the first book that I read this month, and that was November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I did a buddy read with Megan over at Megan Precourt and Rachel over at Rachel Hannah, and it was so great to read a Colleen Hoover book along with some of my girlfriends, because we all know that Colleen Hoover just writes some really intense books that you want to automatically just like gush and talk about with your fellow friends and readers, and this one was no exception either, so I loved getting to talk to them throughout the read. While this wasn't my absolute favorite Colleen Hoover book, I still really did enjoy it. I thought the main male character in this book was A+, and I loved how I felt that Colleen Hoover just got the reader in this book. I ended up rating this book a 4 out of 5 stars. After reading November 9, I wanted to get back into reading some psychological thrillers, and I saw that Overdrive had Try Not to Breathe by Holly Seddon available for me to read that instant, so I said, you know what, I'm picking it up even though I've never heard of this book, and I am so glad that I did. This is Holly Seddon's debut novel. It came out a few months ago, and I did do a non-spoiler book review, and I will link that down below in the description box if you guys want to check out more of my in-depth thoughts. But if you guys are looking for more of a tame psychological thriller, I highly suggest you guys checking this out. Why I loved this story so much was because it followed multiple points of views and 2 different timelines, all leading up to the very end. So with that said, it kept me on my toes throughout the book. You had multiple unreliable characters that had a lot of redeemable qualities, so the reader finds themselves at cheering them on throughout the read, and I just love those types of characters. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for Try Not to Breathe by Holly Seddon. And then it was time to jump back on to the Raven Cycle train. So I decided to pick up the Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater, which is the second book in the Raven Cycle quartet. And I didn't realize how much I was going to adore this book and just fly right on through it. And so I ended up taking it to the pool a few days and read it within a couple of days and knew that I needed to get my hands on Blue Lily Lily Bloom, which I will talk about here in a few minutes. But I found myself really enjoying the Dream Thieves because I just realized that these characters are so unique. You will not find a friend group like you find in the Raven Cycle quartet. Maggie Stiefvater did a great job with making each individual character so very different, but yet they complement each other in so many ways. Even though this story is strange and bizarre, I absolutely loved it, and the Gray Man found a special place in my heart. I ended up rating this book a 4 out of 5 stars. So naturally, after that, I had to continue on reading the Raven Cycle, so I picked up Blue Lily Lily Blue from the Overdrive app and sped on through that audiobook like no one's business. What I loved most about this book is Blue really shined in this novel. I feel like with how unique and bizarre these character of boys are in the first and second book, Blue kind of got overshadowed by them, and I just love how fierce and determined she was in this novel, and I rated this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And then for the rest of the month, I pretty much decided I kind of wanted to just get lost in my new adult read, because it wouldn't be a good Hope reading month without some new adult. So the first book that I picked up was Wicked Sexy Liar by Christina Lauren. This is the 4th book in her Wild Seasons companion series, and hands down this was my absolute favorite. Now this book doesn't follow the 3 main couple friends. And so if you wanted to read this one without reading books 1 through 3, you totally could, even though I highly recommend you guys reading the whole series because I just love it that much. But by far, this was my absolute favorite. I found that not only were the main characters super lovable and really relatable, but I found that even the side characters were just as good, if not even better than the main characters. And I just love how effortless this read was for me. And I don't think I said this before, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to link all of the book's Goodreads pages down below in the description box. That way, if you guys want to check out more in depth what these books are all about, you can definitely do so. And then after that, I decided to pick up The Edge of Never by J.A. Ridmersky. Yes. It was a very well-loved book on Goodreads. It has crazy good ratings, and I had it on hold on my Overdrive app for a long time, and it finally came in, so I was super excited to read it. Sadly though, I was very disappointed, and I don't rant on books that often, like almost never. But after reading this book, I went on a total rant on Goodreads, but I don't want to rant on here, so I'm just going to give you a little snippet of why I did not enjoy this book. And if you guys probably couldn't tell, I ended up rating it a 1 out of 5 stars, which is also very rare that I do that. But to quote myself, I wrote in my rant, there was this unrealistic, unjustifiable, and irresponsible feeling to this whole novel until the last 5% of the book, and I still 100% stand by that statement. I felt like everything leading up to the last 5% was just complete stupid, and I couldn't even handle it. There were so many times where I almost DNF'd this book, but I decided to just keep on pushing through to figure out why everyone loved it so much. But with that said, I did not love it. The next book I read, I knew that I wanted to read something that I knew I was going to like, and I really enjoy K.A. Tucker. She is another author that writes some really great new adult companion series, and so I picked up 5 Ways to Fall, and I really did enjoy this one too. I ended up rating it a 4 out of 5 stars. For you guys who have read her 10 Tiny Breaths companion series, you guys are familiar with Ben, who was the bouncer at Penny's, and this book follows Ben and a girl named Reese, who is super feisty and totally gives Ben a run for his money. My friend Hannah over at Hannah Love Book recently picked up The Bride Quartet by Nora Roberts because I had been reading Nora Roberts a few months ago and had been gushing about it, and she recently picked it up and pretty much devoured all of The Bride Quartet, and she encouraged me to pick up book 3 because it's just been sitting on my shelf, so I picked up Savor the Moment by Nora Roberts. This is the 3rd book in The Bride Quartet, and this was the most precious one, and I really adored these characters. I felt like their story was very realistic. It wasn't super sugar-coated, and I loved Delaney Brown so much. I wasn't the biggest fan of the 2nd Bride book, but the 3rd one kind of just got me back into this story and just really loving the characters, and I cannot wait to pick up book 4. The last and final book that I read in the month of April was The Girl in 6E, and this is another book that has been pretty well loved in the book community. I hadn't heard too much about it until I started digging a little deeper and saw a whole bunch of people who are on BookTube rate it on Goodreads. But Trina over at Between Chapters had mentioned this in a recent Top 5 Wednesday video that she did. This past month, I had been loving psychological thrillers, and I saw that Overdrive also had this available, so I went ahead and picked it up. When I say that this is an adult psychological thriller, I definitely mean it's very adult. So much so that I couldn't even handle a lot of the content, and I'm 27 years old. So pretty much I skimmed through the first half of the book. So it was very hard for me to give this book an accurate rating. The Girl in 6E follows a character who is addicted to murder and addicted to killing, and so to prevent herself from murdering people and going on this killing rampage, she has locked herself up in her apartment, and she hasn't been outside in 3 years. She has a very interesting profession as a cam girl, which I don't even know if that's a real life profession. I'm a little nervous to Google it, so if you guys know if being a cam girl is something that is legit and real in this world, let me know down below, because like I said, I don't want to Google anything. Her profession is to be this cam girl. Working through her profession, she meets a variety of clientele, and she finds herself linking one of her clients to a girl's disappearance, and she pretty much starts making it her life mission to save this girl. I ended up rating this book a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I kind of want to do a book review over this in like a completely separate video, but I'm assuming that YouTube is oversaturated with book reviews on this novel. But if you guys do want to see more of my in-depth thoughts about this book, please let me know down below, because I will definitely consider doing one for you guys. Well friends, that pretty much wraps it up for my April wrap up. The 10 books that I read this month were very different from each other, which I really enjoyed. And if you guys haven't checked out my best in books for April, I did post that a few days ago. And yeah, if you guys have read The Girl in 6E, I would love to know what your thoughts were. Like I said, it seems to be pretty well loved. Until next time guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm sure I will see you soon. Bye!